Do not start out dreaming about $100 million. In the beginning, you just want your card not to get declined at checkout. You want to stand in Walmart hearing each item beep across the scanner without silently adding everything up in your head to see if you still have enough money. You want to fill up your gas tank instead of pressing exactly $20 and telling yourself that should be enough to get through the weekend. You want to open your banking app once, not over and over again close to midnight, as if looking one more time might somehow make the balance change. But it does not change. $11.38. That is everything you have left until Friday. Rent is coming due. The student loan is still there. The credit card is almost maxed out. Car insurance just went up. And the electric company just sent a very polite email, but you already know there is nothing comfortable inside it. You are 23 years old. You live in a small apartment with yellow kitchen light, a dining table. You bought used on Craigslist, and a chair with one uneven leg that you still use because it technically still works. Because at this level, anything that still works has to keep working. You tell yourself everyone goes through this stage, that this is just being young, that a few years from now everything will be different. But when you lie down at midnight and stare at the ceiling, you are not thinking about youth. You are thinking about money. Not in an ambitious way, in a survival way. At the lowest level, money is not a dream. Money is background noise in your head. It is there when you order the cheapest thing on the menu. It is there when you pretend you are not hungry because you do not want to spend another $15. It is there when your friends invite you out for drinks and you stare at the message for a long time before replying that you are kind of tired tonight. You are not tired. You just do not have enough money left to enjoy life like a normal person. That is what people rarely say about being broke. It does not just take away comfort, it takes away ease. You do not walk into a day like a normal person. You walk into a day like an exhausted accountant auditing your own life. Is this coffee worth it? If I pay this bill today, how many days can I push the other one? If the car breaks down again, where am I supposed to get the money? You are not really living. You are calculating. And when you have to calculate for too long, every small decision starts carrying a little bit of shame. The first rule of money is this. When you do not have enough money, money does not live in your wallet. It lives in your nervous system. It makes it hard to sleep. It makes you irritable. It makes you watch someone buy something without checking the price. And for one tiny second, they look like they live on another planet. Then you get a better job, not your dream job, but better. Instead of hourly pay, you now make $54,000 a year. The first time you look at the offer letter, it feels like you just stepped through a door. You think everything will feel lighter, and it does feel lighter. For about 2 months. Then life begins adjusting to your new income. You move into a less terrible apartment. You buy a new mattress. You fix the car instead of praying every time you turn the key. You pay down some credit card debt. You go to Target and allow yourself to buy towels that are not the absolute cheapest ones. Part of you feels proud. Another part of you feels confused because your bank balance still is not growing as fast as you thought it would. You learn the first lesson. Making more money does not automatically make you richer. It only gives your life more room to demand more from you. One day you pay off your smallest credit card balance, $2,100. Nobody knows about it, no fireworks, no Facebook post. But you sit in your car in the parking lot looking at the screen, showing a zero balance, and your throat suddenly tightens. Because it is not just a debt disappearing. It is proof that you are not completely powerless. You pushed one thing out of your life, only one small thing, but enough for you to understand that life can move, not fast, not beautifully, but it can move. A few years later, your savings account reaches $12,000. You are almost 27. Before that, you had never seen that much money just sitting still under your own name. You do not spend it. You are not even ready to invest it yet. You just look at it. For someone who has lived in a state of not having enough, $12,000 is not just $12,000. It is the distance between a small emergency and a disaster. It is the right to sleep a little better. It is the feeling that if your tire blows out, your whole life does not blow up with it. This is when money begins to change roles. It is no longer just something used to pay bills. It becomes a cushion between you and chaos. You start learning. Not because you want to become a financial genius, but because for the first time, you have something to protect. You hear about 401ks, Roth IRA, index funds, compound interest, taxes, assets. At first, it all sounds like a language designed to make normal people feel stupid, but you keep reading. You keep listening to podcasts on your way to work. You open a brokerage account. It sits empty for almost a month. Then you put in $2,000. The next day, the market drops. Not by much, but enough to make your stomach tighten. You want to pull the money out. You think people like you should not be playing this game. But you leave it alone. And that becomes one of your first mature decisions with money. Not because it makes you a lot, but because you do not let fear pull your hand away from the future. By around 30, you are making $78,000 a year. You have an emergency fund. You have an investment account. You pay your bills on time. Your credit score is better. You are not rich. But you are no longer in free fall. For many people, this is already success, and for a while you believe that too. You do the textbook things. You save. You invest consistently. You do not buy a car that is too expensive. You do not blow your bonus. You do not live like people on Instagram. Then one Sunday night, you open your laptop. Maybe because you were just looking at Zillow and realized that even a very normal house now costs like a joke. You enter your income, your savings rate, your raises, your investment returns, your retirement age. You drag the formula down 30, 35, 40 years. And for the first time, you look at your financial future, not through emotion, but through numbers. It is not bad. It is responsible. It is enough to live. But it is smaller than the life you had quietly imagined. Not because you want a yacht, not because you want an expensive watch, but because you do not want to ask your work schedule for permission for every piece of the rest of your life. This is a very dangerous level. The level where your life is stable enough that nobody feels sorry for you, but not stable enough for you to actually be free. The second rule is this: a good job can save you from the bottom, but it rarely gets you out of the system. And once you see the ceiling, you cannot pretend you never saw it. You start building something outside of your job. At first, it is very small. You help a local business fix its website. You do weekend consulting. You sell a digital product. You write content for clients. It does not matter what it is. What matters is that for the first time, money comes to you from something other than selling your time. The first month it makes $300. The next month it is $700, then $1,500. Then 1 month the side thing brings in more than your rent. You do not tell many people because you do not know what to call it yet. It is not big enough to brag about, but it is big enough to change the way you see yourself. You are no longer just a person with a salary. You are someone who can create cash flow. There is a massive difference. You keep your lifestyle almost the same. You still bring lunch to work. You still drive the car with a few scratches on it. You still buy things on sale. But inside, something is accelerating. Your net worth passes $100,000, then $180,000, then $260,000. You do not feel rich, but you feel traction. Your investments produce a little money. Your side work produces cash flow. That cash flow buys more assets. Those assets reduce the pressure of having to live entirely on your paycheck. For the first time, you see a loop that can begin feeding itself. This is when you understand leverage. Not as a fancy word, but through the real feeling of something you built last week, still making money this week. You begin to see time differently. Not every hour is equal. An hour scrolling on your phone disappears forever. An hour building an asset can come back and pay you for years. And once you understand that you become more demanding with your own life, you say no more often. No to the weekend Vegas trip just to keep the peace. No to the new car just because your coworker bought one. No to the vague business deal just because the person asking is a close friend. People say you have changed. Maybe they are right. But what they do not see is that you did not change because you look down on them. You changed because for the first time, you are protecting a future that feels real. At $500,000, money begins behaving differently. It is no longer just a pile of money. It is a small army. Some of it is in the market. Some of it is in the business. Some of it is in cash. Some of it is in real estate. Some of it is in skills and relationships that no spreadsheet can fully record. You have a year where you make $70,000 without working an extra hour. You also have a quarter where you lose $30,000 on paper. For the first time, you do not panic the way you used to. You are not happy, but you understand. If you want assets to grow, you have to accept that they have a heartbeat. They go up, they go down. There are periods when they make you feel smart. There are periods when they make you feel stupid. The difference is that you no longer treat volatility as failure. You start managing risk instead of running away from risk. Beginners want certainty. People who go far want favorable odds. Those are two different worlds. Then your net worth moves closer to $1 million. Not fast like in motivational videos, not clean, not straight. Some years jump forward, some years barely move. Sometimes you trust the wrong person, sometimes you hold too long. Sometimes you sell too early. Sometimes you lose money because you were naive. Sometimes you make money because you were patient. You are 37 years old. Your net worth is $980,000. You know it is close. You do not tell anyone. But you check every morning. Then one very ordinary day, the number crosses 1 million. No music, no lights changing color. No feeling that life just unlocked a new level. You just sit there, looking, silent. And the strange thing is that the first feeling is not excitement, it is calm. Then comes a slightly cold truth. $1 million is not as big as the broke version of you once thought it was. It is huge if you are starting from zero. But once you get there, you understand it is not the end. It is only proof that your method can work. The third rule is this. The $1 million milestone does not turn you into a new person. It only removes the excuse that you do not know how to build. From here, the question changes. It is no longer how do I survive? It is no longer how do I save enough? It becomes how do I multiply what is already working without destroying myself? You start hiring people. You learn how to delegate. You learn how to pay people who are better than you at the things you should no longer be touching. You realize that every level of wealth requires you to fire an older version of yourself, the version that saved every dollar saved you at the beginning. But if you keep that version too long, it will make you afraid to invest. The version that did everything yourself helped you start. But if you keep that version too long, it turns you into the bottleneck. The version that worked 14 hours a day got you here. But if you keep that version too long, it will break your body, your family, your mind, and your judgment. At a few $1 million, money no longer worries you in the old way. You do not check your account to see if you have enough to pay bills. You check to see where capital is sitting in the wrong place. You do not ask how much does this cost. You ask how much attention will this take from me. You no longer optimize every coupon. You optimize the big decisions. At $10 million, the game is no longer making more by doing more. If you still have to do more to make more, you have not truly escaped. You begin placing capital in places where money can work with money. A business acquires a smaller business. A property gets refinanced to buy another asset. A cash-flowing investment funds a longer-term position. Assets begin talking to each other. You are no longer the person dragging every dollar uphill by hand. You are the person designing the hill. At the bottom, money is always tied to personal effort. 1 hour worked, 1 extra shift, 1 bonus, 1 bill paid. But at this level, money starts being tied to structure. Who owns what? Where the cash flows? Which side holds the risk? Who has control? You talk less, not because you are mysterious, but because the farther you go, the more you understand that saying the wrong thing in the wrong room can make the truth sound insulting. If you say $1 million is not enough freedom, some people will think you are greedy. If you say $100,000 is a small reserve, some people will hear it as if you are disrespecting their entire life. So you learn to be quiet. Not the silence of weakness, the silence of someone who understands that context decides meaning. At $30 million, money begins creating distance. Not because you become a bad person, but because your decisions are increasingly far away from the people directly affected by them. You invest in a company. The company cuts 160 employees. You read the report. Margins are better. The company is worth more. You know there are human beings behind those lines. Rent, health insurance, phone calls home, sleepless nights. But you do not know each person. You only see a more efficient operating structure, and that is what makes you quiet. Not because you have no conscience, but because you realize that big money often makes consequences abstract. At $80 million, loneliness no longer looks like having nobody beside you. You have plenty of people around you. Assistants, partners, investors, people inviting you to dinner, people who want advice, people who want money. But there are very few people you can talk to without translating your life first. Old friends still love you, but they do not understand the world you live in. That is not their fault. It is not exactly your fault either. Your life has simply moved into another language. This is the price that very few wealth videos talk about. When you move too far into another level of life, not everyone can come with you in conversation. They can love you, but they may no longer understand your context. Close to $100 million money no longer measures safety. Safety was solved a long time ago. It also no longer measures success in the old way. Because you have met too many successful people who are empty. Too many rich people controlled by the fear of losing status. Too many people who have everything but cannot sit still for 20 minutes without checking their phone. At this level, money measures reach. One phone call from you can change the direction of a company. One investment from you can create hundreds of jobs or erase them. One introduction from you can put someone in a room they might not reach on their own in 10 years. Power no longer needs to be loud. The bigger it gets, the less it has to explain itself. There's a meeting on a Thursday morning, 7 people around a long table. Nobody speaks loudly. Nobody is trying to prove how smart they are. You speak for less than 5 minutes. You ask 3 questions. After the 3rd question, the direction of the meeting changes. Nobody announces it. Nobody needs to. That is power in its most mature form. No stage, no applause, only wait. And then somewhere not too far away, there is a 24-year-old standing in a grocery store. He looks at his phone. The balance is $11.38. He is holding a good bag of coffee. Then he puts it back. He grabs the cheaper one. He thinks his problem is money. And he is not wrong. Because money will solve many things. It will solve the buzzing noise in your head. It will solve the fear of bills. It will solve the feeling of being trapped in a job you are too afraid to quit. It will solve the right to choose where you live, how you get treated, how you use your time, and how you protect your family. But money will also open new questions. Who are you willing to become to get it? What simplicity are you willing to lose? Which relationships are you willing to let change? How much distance are you willing to live with between your decisions and their consequences? That is what he does not know yet. Nobody knows in the beginning. In the beginning, you just want your card not to get declined. You just want to sleep well. You just want to breathe. And maybe that is why this game is so powerful. It does not begin with greed. It begins with exhaustion. It begins with someone standing in a grocery store, putting down what they want, picking up what they can afford, and quietly promising themselves that one day they will not live like this anymore. And if that person keeps showing up long enough, keeps learning long enough, keeps enduring long enough, does not run away from the numbers, does not avoid the truth, does not spend the future just to soothe the present, something begins to compound. Not only money, discipline compounds, a calm mind compounds, the ability to think long-term compounds, the ability to say no compounds, distance compounds too, the new person compounds too. And many years later, maybe they will remember the old feeling. Not to romanticize it, being poor is not good. It is just a very cruel teacher. But maybe they will remember that everything once began with a very small number on a phone screen. $11.38, not enough to feel safe, but enough to start getting angry, enough to start learning, enough to start changing. Because in the end, money always compounds. But not only money. Every decision you repeat compounds. Every fear you overcome compounds. Everything you sacrifice compounds. And the person you become along the way compounds too.